Hello, my name is Stilian Sabev, and our group was responsible for the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack. And before we get into the attack, I'm going to go going over the history of the pipeline and what the pipeline provided for the United States. Now, the pipeline is over 5,500 miles long, stretching from Linden, New Jersey, all the way down to Houston, Texas, and it spans a lot of eastern coastal states and helps transport 2.5 million barrels of refined fuel per day. And it is the largest refined products pipeline in the US. And some of the goods that it transports include jet fuel, diesel, and gasoline. And now going back to the beginning of the Colonial Pipeline, it was founded in 1961 by 7 oil companies with the intention of moving their goods easily across America. This was a significant undertaking because it cost them over $370 million, which made it the single largest privately funded construction project in the history of the United States at the time. And the company was actually originally called the Suwannee Pipeline Company, but when construction began in 1962, they changed it to the Colonial Pipeline Company as it is today. And just in 1963 as well, they had already laid down 1,000 miles of pipeline that was ready to be filled and continued construction until 1964, where the pipeline was considered fully operational. And as time went on, the pipeline continued to function and support the local eastern states until 1972 when they decided to do an expansion project where they added a loop to the pipeline, which added just a second line running parallel to the first, which helped increase the capacity of the pipeline by 1.6 million barrels per day. And then in 1980, another project was began, which cost 670 million, and it resulted in 83% more pipeline being built than there was originally constructed in the 60s. Now, the pipeline had many innovations that helped it in providing fuel for America, and one of the biggest innovations that it had is it was the first pipeline that was equipped with geodesic domes. Now, these domes are known to be aerodynamic, which made them sturdier in hurricanes and earthquakes. And into the top left, you can see the dome that they used to store the fuel. And they also use a device called an electric wave pig, which allows them to send this engineers to send this device into the pipe to help detect any microscopic cracks that could be forming in the pipe wall, and then address them before they become more catastrophic. And these innovations and their strive to be environmentally conscious helped them win the 2001 Distinguished Environmental and Safety Award. But there have been some issues as of recently that have plagued the pipeline itself. And during 2017, Joe Block took over as CEO, and he had to deal with many coming issues as he in the coming years, such as in 2020, where over 2 million gallons of gasoline were leaked into the Oler Nature Reserve that's near Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. This was the largest onshore fuel spill in the nation's history, so it was pretty significant. And then the bottom right is a picture of the spill of a year later, showing how long it took to help clear out that fuel spill. And even today, there's still more fuel in the ground. And again, just a year later after that, on May 7th, 2021, the company suffered a ransomware attack, which caused the pipeline to cease operations for several days. Now, this was very significant because over 12,000 gas stations across America were affected. And in 5 days after the attack, they were able to resume operations.
I'm Ruth. Now I will be discussing the hacking of the Colonial Pipeline. The Colonial Pipeline Breach is the greatest publicly known cyber attack against vital infrastructure in the United States. The information technology systems of the Colonial Pipeline were the target of a multi-stage assault. The attack did not immediately affect the operating technological systems of the pipeline, which carry oil. A hacker, collectively known as DarkSide, gained access to the Colonial Pipeline network, which set off the attack. Within a 2-hour interval, the attackers took 100 terabytes of data. Following the data theft, the attackers attacked the Colonial Pipeline Information Technology Network with ransomware, which had an impact on several computer systems, including the billing and accounting systems. For the purpose of halting the spread of the ransomware, Colonial Pipeline shut down the pipeline. Mandiant, a security investigative company, was then hired to look into the incident. The incident was also reported to the Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. Department of Energy, the FBI, and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Colonial Pipeline paid DarkSide hackers to obtain the decryption key, giving the business's IT team access to its computer systems once more. What was the root cause of the Colonial Pipeline hacking? Well, according to Charles Carmichael, Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer of cybersecurity company Mandiant, at a June 8 hearing before a House Committee on Homeland Security, attackers gained access to the Colonial Pipeline network using an exposed password for a VPN account to enable safe, encrypted remote access to a business network. Many firms employ VPNs. In accordance with Carmichael's evidence, a Colonial Pipeline worker whose identity was kept secret throughout the hearing likely used the same VPN password at another location. Somehow, that password was made vulnerable as a result of another data breach. Due to the prevalence of people using the same password several times, password reuse has grown to be a major issue. Now let's discuss the process of the Colonial Pipeline hacking. On May 6, 2021, the initial intrusion and data theft occurred. The next day, on May 7, 2021, the ransom attack began. Also, on this day, Colonial Pipeline became aware of the hacking and they called in the Mandiant security firm to investigate and respond to the attack. During this time, law enforcement and federal government authorities were notified of the attack. The pipeline was taken offline to reduce risk of exposure to the operational network. Finally, Colonial Pipeline paid the ransom of 75 Bitcoin, which is $4.4 million equivalency, to the DarkSide hackers. According to reports, malicious actors used ransomware against the pipeline company's business systems. A sort of malicious software known as ransomware is used to block access to information technology systems or data and hold those systems or data hostage until a ransom is paid. The use of DarkSide ransomware in the assault was verified by a combined Department of Homeland Security and FBI advisory notice. This warning stated that in order to maintain the safety of the pipeline, the business has proactively unplugged several systems that monitor and manage actual pipeline operations so that they wouldn't be jeopardized. On May 13th, Colonial Pipeline reported that it has restarted its pipeline and that product delivery had resumed to all markets.
The vulnerability of Colonial Pipeline in this circumstance was due in part to its reliance on outdated technology and poor cybersecurity measures. One of the key lessons from the Colonial Pipeline attack is the need for companies to regularly update their software and conduct interval security inspections to identify and mitigate vulnerabilities. This includes not only the company's internal systems, but also any third-party software or services that it uses. In this instance, an outdated Microsoft Exchange services was exploited in the Colonial Pipeline attack. Ransomware has become an increasingly common tactic used by cybercriminals to target organizations and infrastructures of all sizes. In the case of the Colonial Pipeline attack, the hackers used ransomware to encrypt the company's files that barred them from access and demanded payment in exchange for the decryption key. This type of attack can be very disruptive and costly. As we heard before, the company was infiltrated using an exposed employee VPN password. The IT team did not even realize they were under attack until after the ransomware was installed. Because of their inefficient recovery process, they were unable to assuage the impact of the attack. In the future, a coherent incident response plan should include clear procedures for detecting, reporting, and responding to security incidents. It is important to recognize that other industries such as healthcare, finance, and transportation could also be vulnerable to similar attacks. Cyber attacks can have global effects, and it is important for governments to work together to prevent and respond to them. The United States has recently taken steps to increase its focus on cybersecurity, including through the creation of a new Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. In the aftermath of the attack, the company has committed to investing in cybersecurity measures and incident response planning to ensure that they are better prepared to deal with future cyber threats.
The consequences of the data breach. Today I will discuss the significant consequences of the Colonial Pipeline security breach and the importance of information security. The immediate aftermath. When the pipeline was shut down, panic and disruption quickly spread across the East Coast. People rushed to gas stations, fearing fuel shortages. This surge in demand led to a spike in gas prices, reaching their highest point in 6 years, placing a financial strain on low-income families who depend on affordable fuel for daily transportation. The shutdown also disrupted the entire fuel supply chain, affecting numerous businesses. The broader economic impact. The data breach had far-reaching economic consequences. Industries like airlines faced increased fuel costs and scheduling disruptions. These costs were often passed on to consumers who faced higher prices for goods and services. Sectors ranging from transportation to retail struggled to maintain regular operations, resulting in reduced revenue and hindered economic growth during the pipeline shutdown. The long-term implications. The breach highlighted the vulnerabilities of our nation's critical infrastructure and importance of protecting these systems from cyber attacks. Companies across various sectors began investing in advanced cybersecurity measures. Simultaneously, the breach led to discussions on the need to diversify energy sources and reduce dependency on a single fuel source, encouraging and researching and innovating in a sustainable energy like solar, wind, or electric power. The Colonial Pipelines Company's response. The data breach had a profound impact on the Colonial Pipeline Company. Based on intense scrutiny and financial strain, the company took several steps to mitigate the damage and restore its reputation. They increased investments in cybersecurity measures, collaborated with law enforcement agencies, and worked diligently to restore pipelines' functionality. Moreover, the company provided regular updates and transparent communication with the public and the government to rebuild trust. The consequences of the data breach. Conclusion. The Colonial Pipeline security breach has left a lasting impact on various aspects of society, including the national economy, and critical infrastructure. This incident serves as a stark reminder as the importance of a robust cybersecurity measures and presents an opportunity for innovation and sustainable energy sources. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Anthony Wu, and I'm going to be talking about the current status of Colonial Pipeline. I want to begin by talking about the change in leadership. As with many big scandals with companies, Colonial Pipeline changed a couple of executive positions. Melania Little came to replace Joe Blount as CEO as Joe was announcing his retirement in the summer of 2022. And Daryl Rakina was hired as the new Chief Information Officer. Melania Little has past experiences with operations and sustainability. Colonial Pipeline hopes that she will bring critical changes in preventing any future spills and environmental damage the pipeline may cause in the future. Her impressive education in environmental engineering and civil engineering should help further that goal. Her hiring is believed to be because of the recent gas spill. Daryl Rakina was hired as the new CIO, Chief Information Officer, and he has experience in digital transformation and enterprise resource planning. So he's really used to working with big companies such as Target, Kroger, and JCPenney. The experience he brings to the company will hopefully help prevent or mitigate any future cyber attacks, especially ransomware attacks. Colonial Pipeline is currently being sued by the Department of Transportation's Pipeline and Hazardous Materials and Safety Administration. The lawsuit started December of 2022, and they're being sued for control room failures, as well as being unprepared for manual preparation and restart of the pipeline. Colonial Pipeline states that they were in compliance with the current regulations at the time, so they shouldn't be held liable for any shortcomings that they may have experienced. However, the part of the lawsuit that pertained to the operation of the pipeline was kept hidden from the public because of operational security. The lawsuit held a maximum fine of $1 million, so it's a good amount of money for Colonial Pipeline. But Colonial Pipeline also states that the fine exceeds the maximum amount necessary for this type of incident.
Now, as for what security recommendations we recommend for Colonial Pipeline, there's two. The first recommendation we have is the use of two-factor authentication. Because the reason the hackers were able to gain access to the company's database was through the inactive VPN account password that the company had. And once the hackers were able to attain that password, they were able to get into the database. And now, had the company used a two-factor authentication method, this attack could have been avoided. And the reason for it is two-factor just allows a second layer of defense when signing into an account. And there's very different methods that you can use for authentication, such as app-based or SMS text message authentication. And what we recommend is that Colonial should make it a requirement to use two-factor authenticators when signing into anything onto their network, similar to how we have dual push here at FAU. And the second recommendation we have is the use of proper cybersecurity practices. This basically means educating employees on how to be safe on the internet and avoid becoming a victim to cybercrime. Again, the old unused VPN password that Colonial had should have never been left unused in the first place. Should an employee's account ever become inactive, it should be deleted from the system so it can't be used in the future as it's just a vulnerability. And a good cybersecurity course can help teach employees how to handle this sensitive company information and how to stay wary of these potential cyber attacks. And what we recommend is that Colonial Pipeline should create and administer a mandatory cybersecurity practices program to each of their employees so that they may protect themselves while they're using the company network. And that's everything. Thank you.